All right, so takeaway information from Unit 7 about clean air policy. The first is that the public trust doctrine continues to be a vital legal philosophy for protecting common pool environmental resources. Those common pool resources are the ones that are potentially subject to the tragedy of the commons. They are resources that are so vital to everyone that we only entrust them to be regulated and managed and protected publicly, not through the private sector. So we rely on our central government to protect things like air, water, and biodiversity. A second piece of takeaway information is that the Clean Air Act relies on cooperative federalism. Remember, that's the relationship between the federal government and the states. The federal government creates overarching goals and objectives and a framework for achieving those, and the states then create their state implementation plans, and the states are responsible for implementing those plans and enforcing compliance and reporting to the federal government. But if a state doesn't do that, then the federal government may revoke the state's rights and responsibilities, and the federal government will then do it themselves. Next is this idea of command and control governance. Command and control governance refers to government regulations that are created by the central government. It can be the federal government or the state government, and then they are handed out to the regulated community, and the regulated community is forced to comply. So the Clean Air Act relies on command and control governance. The federal government, through cooperative federalism, to the state government, regulates how the regulated community will act in this case. And it requires them to implement those health-based standards and the technology standards and the performance standards. So this is a command and control system. Different from a decentralized system of government where the regulated community themselves might participate in the rulemaking and in the implementation and the enforcement. So that's decentralized or distributed among the regulated community and results in lots of variation and flexibility in the way the rules are implemented. Next, it's important to recognize end-of-pipe policies. These are policies that regulate pollutions at the end of a pipe or a smokestack or a sewer outfall. And so they don't influence the way that waste is created or the production processes. They just try to limit those pollutants at the point where they enter the natural environment. Front of pipe solutions are those that modify production practices and try to reduce the amount of waste or byproducts that are created upfront. End of pipe policies tend to only treat the symptoms of a problem, and front of pipe policies tend to treat the processes that create the problem in the first place. The Clean Air Act is, I would say, mostly an end of pipe policy, though it does have some front of pipe components to it, such as the technology standards. Lastly, I want you to be able to describe the different policy instruments: bans, performance standards, technology standards, economic policies, and health-based standards. And to be able to describe when each of those different types of policy instruments might be more effective. So what kind of situation or circumstance it lends itself to each of those different policy types and why. Each one has its own strengths and weaknesses, and each are more appropriate in different circumstances. It's important to know how you might piece those different policy instruments together, kind of like a puzzle, to weave a web of environmental protection. Thanks.